compassionate conservatism, which they claim is a new departure with substantive meaning. But in reality, to be compassionate is meaningless if compassion is limited to the mere awareness of the suffering of others. The test of compassion is action. And what the administration offers, with one hand is the rhetoric of compassion. What it takes away with the other hand are the financial resources necessary to make compassion more than an empty and fading impression. Maybe one reason that false impressions have played a bigger role than they should is that both Congress and the news media have been less vigilant and exacting than they should have been in the way they have tried to hold the administration accountable. Whenever both houses of Congress are controlled by the president's party, there is a danger of passivity and a temptation for the legislative branch to abdicate its constitutional role. If the party in question is unusually fierce in demanding ideological uniformity and obedience, then this problem can become even worse and effectively prevent the Congress from properly exercising oversight. Under such circumstances, the majority party in the Congress has a special obligation to the people and to our Constitution to permit full congressional inquiry and oversight rather than constantly frustrating it and preventing it to the point where the one group called the police on to oust members of the Democratic caucus of the Tax Writing Committee from the room where they were trying to figure out what was pending to be voted on. Now, whatever the reasons for the recent failures to hold the president properly accountable, America has a compelling need to quickly breathe new life into our founders' system of checks and balances. Because for all the choices that have just been made that are leading to such serious problems now, some very important choices about our future lie just ahead of us, and it is imperative that we avoid basing them on more false impressions. One thing the president could do is to facilitate the restoration of checks and balances is to stop blocking reasonable efforts from the Congress to play its rightful role. I'll give you one example. He could order his appointees to cooperate fully with the Bipartisan National Commission on Terrorist Attacks, headed by former Republican Governor Tom Kean. And he should let them examine how the White House handled the warnings that are said to have been given to the president by the intelligence community. 2 years ago yesterday, for example, according to the Wall Street Journal, the president was apparently advised in specific language that Al-Qaeda was going to hijack some airplanes to conduct a terrorist strike inside the U.S. Now, I understand his concern about people knowing exactly what he reads in the privacy of the Oval Office. And there is a legitimate reason for treating such memos to the president with extreme care. But that concern has to be balanced against the national interest in improving the way America deals with such information. And I get the impression from the apparently chaotic procedures that were used to handle the forged documents from Niger that certainly there is evidence of room for improvement in the way the White House is handling these kinds of intelligence memos. Along with other members of the previous administration, I certainly want the Commission to have access to any and all documents sent to the White House while we were there that have any bearing whatsoever on this issue. And President Bush should let the Commission see the ones that he was reading, too. After all, this president has claimed the right for his executive branch to send people, if they so desire, into every public library in America and secretly monitor what the rest of us are reading. That's in the Patriot Act. If we have to put up with such a broad and extreme invasion of our privacy rights in the name of terrorism prevention, surely he can find a way to let this National Commission know how he and his staff handled a highly specific warning of terrorism just 36 days before 9/11. And speaking of the Patriot Act, the President ought to rein in John Ashcroft and stop the gross abuse of civil rights that have twice been documented by the Inspector General of the Justice Department itself. And while he's at it, he needs to rein in Donald Rumsfeld and get rid of that Total Information Awareness program that's right out of George Orwell's 1984. This administration hastened from the very beginning to persuade us that defending America can't be done without seriously abridging the protections of the Constitution for American citizens, up to and including an asserted right to place American citizens, if the executive branch so chooses, in a form of limbo totally beyond the authority of our courts, and not even let them see a lawyer. That view is both wrong and, my friends, it is fundamentally un-American. Maybe the most urgent need for new oversight of the executive branch and the restoration of checks and balances is in the realm of security. And there, the administration is now asking that we accept a whole cluster of new myths. For example, the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty was an effort to strike a bargain between states that have nuclear weapons and all others who pledge to refrain from developing them. This administration has rejected this historic accomplishment and now, incredibly, wants to embark on a brand new program to build a new generation of small nuclear bombs to bust bunkers under the ground. In my opinion, this would be true madness and the point of no return to the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty exactly at the time when we and our allies are trying to prevent a resumption of a nuclear arms race triggered by a nuclear testing breakout by North Korea and Iran. We need to stop that. And one of the ways to stop it is with arms control, not building new nuclear bombs. Similarly, the Kyoto Treaty is an historic effort to strike a grand bargain between free market capitalism and the protection of the global environment, which is now gravely threatened by rapidly accelerated warming of the Earth's atmosphere and the consequent disruption of climate patterns that have persisted throughout the entire history of civilization as we know it. This administration has tried to protect the oil and coal industries from any restrictions at all, but Kyoto could become legally effective for global relations even without U.S. participation. Ironically, the principal cause of global warming is our civilization's addiction to burning massive quantities of carbon-based fuels, principally oil, the most important source of which is the Persian Gulf, where our soldiers have just been sent for the second war in a dozen years, at least partly in order to ensure our continued access to oil. We need to face the fact that our dangerous and unsustainable consumption of oil from a highly unstable part of the world is similar in its consequences to all other addictions. As it becomes worse, the consequences get more severe, and you have to pay the dealer more. Now, by now, it is obvious to most Americans that we've had one too many wars in the Persian Gulf, and we need an urgent effort to develop environmentally sustainable substitutes for fossil fuels and a truly international effort to stabilize the Persian Gulf and rebuild Iraq. The removal of Saddam from power is a positive accomplishment in its own right, for which the president deserves credit, just as he deserves credit for removing the Taliban from power in Afghanistan. But in the case of Iraq, we have suffered enormous collateral damage because of the manner in which we went about the invasion, and in both cases, the aftermath has been and is being badly mishandled. The administration is right now trying to give the impression that it's in favor of NATO and UN participation in that effort. But it is not willing to pay the necessary price, which is support for a new UN resolution and genuine sharing of control inside Iraq. If the 21st century is to be well started, we need a national agenda that is worked out in concert with the people, a healing agenda that is built on a true national consensus. Millions of Americans got the impression that George W. Bush wanted to be a healer, not a divider, a president devoted first and foremost to honor and integrity. And yet, far from uniting the people, the president's ideologically narrow agenda has seriously divided America. His most partisan supporters have launched a kind of civil Cold War against those with whom they disagree. And as for honor and integrity, let me say this. We know what that phrase was all about, but hear me well. Not as a candidate for any office, but as an American citizen who loves my country. For 8 years, the Clinton-Gore administration gave this nation honest budget numbers, an economic plan with integrity that rescued the nation from debt and stagnation, honest advocacy for the environment, real compassion for the poor, a strengthening of our military as recently proven, and a foreign policy whose purposes were elevated, candidly presented, and courageously pursued in the face of scorched earth tactics by the opposition. That is also a form of honor and integrity, and not every administration in recent memory has displayed it. So I would say to those who have found the issue of honor and integrity so useful as a political tool, that the American people are also looking for these virtues in the execution of public policy in their behalf, and they will judge whether they are present or absent. I'm proud that my party has candidates for president committed to those values. I admire the effort and skill they are putting into their campaigns. I'm not going to join them, but later in the political cycle I will endorse one of them, because I believe we must stand for a future in which the United States will again be feared only by our enemies, in which our country will again lead the effort to create an international order based on the rule of law, a nation which upholds fundamental rights even for those it believes to be captured enemies, a nation whose financial house is in order, a nation where the marketplace is kept healthy by effective government scrutiny, a nation that does what's necessary to provide for the health, education, and welfare of our people, a society in which citizens of all faiths enjoy equal standing, a republic once again comfortable that its chief executive knows the limits as well as the powers of the presidency, a nation that places the highest value on facts, not ideology, as the basis for all its great debates and decisions.